Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, we're going to do that wolf that I told you about. Okay, so right back here, you can see I have him up on the big monitor. Now what I did was I used Adobe Photoshop. I went over and bought the photo of the wolf, a beautiful photo of a wolf off of Adobe stock. And then I combined it with some landscape photos I have taken and some other photos that were available out there of mountains, ivy, and snow. Anyway, I created those disappearing mountains and some, maybe a tree up along the side. I haven't decided that yet, but the mid-ground and, kind of wood territory. Up in the front, there's a little more snow probably than I want. I might make some broken ground. I'm not sure yet. I want to create some that Carl Rungus look, the wildlife painter Carl Rungus, of that warm, cool that he was so famous for. That those of you that paint wildlife studies with me, we have painted Carl's paintings before, his studies before. He was the master of wildlife painting. But anyway, so I have it here. So I did a drawing out of it. Those of you that are in the membership, that are members of the channel, I will put a photo of this so you have a nice traceable if you want. Okay. You can use my drawing for it. So what I did was I originally started him out on a 16 by 20, which was 16 this way, 20. And I moved it up because I wanted his face just a little bit bigger so I can do some more detailed work. He has a gorgeous look to his face, and so I want to be able to capture that. So I've taken it up just a little bit bigger. Nowhere near what we have painted the wolves before, but, it'll give us a good start here. So this is 18 by 24. So if you want to go a little bit smaller, he fits really nice on a 16 by 24 as well, or 16 by 20. Okay, and you can even go down to a 14 by 18. That would be nice. But those are all good frame sizes. You should be able to find frames with this for this size, no problem. So what we're going to do is what I did was I took this on a board. I had it on a canvas and I decided to do the board. And why do I do the board? I'll tell you guys again, is if I'm going to have a lot of smaller detail there, I don't like fighting the weave. There's some of you that doesn't bother. It bothers me. I don't like fighting the weave of a canvas. Even a portrait weave, sometimes I don't like fighting it. But a board I can make super smooth here and still have a matte surface. So what I do is I give it 2 coats of the Heritage Canvas Prep, sand it lightly, and I've got a super smooth but a matte surface that my brush will drag and stick on, and I love that. So I can put detail in here really easy without having to fight it. Now, some of you asked, with drawing, what do I do with drawing? I use these carpenter's pencils. So when I come on here and I draw, and I make a draw, these don't smear out on me like a lot of other, pencils do and stuff. So I like the harder lead of the carpenter's pencil. So you just get them at your local home store, and you just sharpen them up and off you go. They come with a little sharpener here that I keep right here, and it helps me draw it. So then I can just come in and draw the line. I can darken it where I need to, like in and around his face, and I can hold it really flat because there's a lot of it here if I want to do some shadowing and shadow work and stuff like that. So I can do that pretty easy. But anyway, more of that stuff. We go over a lot of that in other videos, but just to give you an idea. Color-wise, let's look at the palette. Color-wise, my standard palette that I have here, lots of extra white because I'm going to be working into the background today. Some open medium. This is the Matisse Deravan open medium, and since Matisse Deravan manufactures my formula of the paints that I created years ago, they manufacture it for me. We know that this open medium works with this paint. Normally, I do not like mixing different brands of paint because you don't know the chemistry behind it. This we do know. So I have those out there, my standard colors, a little extra white. This is the, right here in the cap is the Heritage Extender medium, which I'll be using quite a bit today to get the thinness to it. The open medium, maybe some thickness. My plan is to start back here in the mountains, working up to the front, maybe do some blocking of some major, what I call landmark colors onto the wolf. We'll try to get to that today. And then in the next video, we'll go in and start working on the wolf. Maybe 2 or 3 videos, depending upon how wordy I get. Okay? All right. So let's get in here and let's have some fun. 18 by 24. I'm going to start out with, now what I did was I printed out a large right across the top of this thing here so we can see kind of where we're going to go with the colors. And what I do in that, and I use a value scale here, and this will help you, those that want to recreate it. You can see it's more of a blue-violet color. This is more of a blue, but we can align those colors pretty well. Now, you can see, look, or even right here, where this is right about a value 3 or so. I was looking at it earlier, 3, between a 2 and a 3, but it's got this misty over it that pushes it back. That's the atmosphere. And I'll show you later on. So we might put it in there as a 2 or a 3, and then we'll wipe over it and put that mist on it after it is dried. So that mist, that atmosphere pushes it back. Now, I did that with you on one of the last Westerns. We saw that, and I showed you how to add depth with the horse wranglers that are, that were looking out over the distance in the horse, and I showed you how you push that huge amount of distance into a painting. It's really a lot of fun to paint. But we can use this to help us start out. So we know over here, boy, that's going to go right about to a 9, right? And then right up through here, we're going to be right to a 7 to a 6 up at the top, right up in that area. So, maybe even as dark as a 5, and then we'll put some mist over it to push it back a little bit more. So we know we're going to work basically 3s up into this area to paint this back here, and then we're going to have to do some mist and stuff with it as well. So I'm going to start out, and I'm going to create a nice blue-violet. So we're going to take our blue here. We're going to take a little bit of the violet. The phthalo is really powerful, so it makes a nice... so it takes actually almost an equal amount of the violet just to shift it over to a blue violet. Let's lighten this up and let's see where we are. Probably not quite violet enough here. And we're going to start out kind of light, and so add a little more violet to it here, a little more quinacridone. We could add the red violet to it. Either one of them will work, okay? And let's take some of this now over to the side here, and let's lighten it up even more right over here as we get up to our 8s or so, and let's look onto the photo where we are here, okay? So we'll look, and boy, we're really, really close to what that is. You can put that on there and see. Now, that will probably dry down to about that color. So that's a good one right there to maybe do some of the blocking in on that side of the painting. So what I'll do is I'll take my big brush with some extender. Sometimes in thin areas, if I want it to really go a long way, and I'm in a thin area of the painting, I will pre-paint the extender onto the surface. You don't see me do this, I used to do it all the time. Now, not quite as often. But I pre-paint this on, and what that does is it takes away a little bit of the matte of the surface here. I wipe it down. So now my paint will slide. I'll take some of my extender, mix it in. I'll mix it in pretty good here because I want this to stay wet for a little bit. So, and I'll thin this out, and let's just work this, because we're going to put it, now I'm going to work it just so I can see a little bit of my drawing here. And if I lose my drawing, that's okay. I know what it looks like. And we'll push that on. Down over here on this side, it could get a little thicker, so I can put a little bit more of it on here. That's a good base, a nice light base of, and I'll even drop some of this right over here. But this would make a beautiful color, this value here, which is, we're right about an 8 here. An 8, almost to an 8. It'll probably dry a little darker, so, we might want to, because acrylics dry a value darker, right? So we might want to just mist in a little more light and working that in, a little extender, a little more white. That is, now I pretty much got rid of all my mountains over there, so that's okay. But so you can see that up there. And I have a little piece of tape right up here that is, I don't know why that's on there, but I'll just push that up out of the way here. Here, like that. Push that up, get rid of that. Okay, and Now, let's come in and let's work some of the mountains. First, let's do the mountains kind of soft. So I'm going to take a 3/4 inch, and I'll look, my back mountains back there are really kind of very misty and stuff, but a little bit darker here. And so I'm looking right about the suggestion of them right about in here. So I'm going to just take some of this other color I have here, a little bit of extender, just kind of thin on my brush. And I'll just kind of whisper in here the idea of this mountain here, and maybe pull across, make some highs and lows. In other words, don't be perfect with it. Make some highs and lows so it kind of disappears. Maybe a little bit more light, or almost like white, so almost like a snow up in here onto it, right? So some of that, and just whisper a little bit of the darker colors into that there. Okay, it's really back there, so you don't see it too much. Let me drop this down, my easel down just a bit, since we're working there, okay? And so we just want to catch the idea of it up here, and a bit of it here, that there is something back there, a little snow, a little different kind of mountain shape here. Tap into it, soften it around, and just very, very soft, and maybe a whisper of some of that snow and stuff up here. Sometimes I'll do this with my knife, and I really like the way that looks, but see, you just leave that little spark or whisper of it there, okay? And it just makes it look like there's snow back there. Now, let's come forward very thin, very, very thin into this, and not much on your brush. Let's come in and let's start up here where it's a little darker, and we'll pull down that angle here, drop this one in, and it's going to rise up a little bit here. And see, I'm just going to be real model-y with it here, and drop some of that in. Okay, now we can come in slightly darker, and we'll put this in actually a little darker than what we see, because I'm going to put some mist over it and push it back. Does that make sense? So if I come in here and I look at this value, it's going to be like around a 6, a 5, or a 6, right? That's going to be right in there. It's not quite the darkness of a 4, but a 5 to a 6. So if I make it like a 6, it's going to dry down to like a 5 or so, and I can gray this ever so slightly, a little bit more violet, purpley violet here. Gray it ever so slightly here. Well, let's look at what volume I'm at. So I'm at a 5, almost to a 4. We could go just a touch lighter. Just a touch lighter there. And let's take a look on the painting here. So that just disappears. See how that just disappears on there? So that's the color, right? So that's the color that we have there. So I'll come in. Now it'll dry darker. And let's just come in and start to add some of the architecture here of that mountain here. Just tap your brush. Find lights are kind of coming this way into the painting here. So it's not so much as important on one of these real back mountains like this, but as we come forward, we're going to paint our light sources and stuff in here. So we'll just kind of tap some of this ruggedness of that mountain in there, right? And sometimes I just love, even though it's further back there, I love to use the knife, and because the knife really gives you this almost granulation to it. See this? It's not quite as smooth, and it just gives you a beautiful look to that mountain. Sometimes the brush is too smooth, so we'll get that kind of granulation there. So see, it's a little bit thicker. See how much this is a little bit thicker? The color I'm applying right now is just a touch thicker than what I have on the surface. So I get this, I get that granulation. And I can push to drag it more to smooth it out and create some of that variation of the mountain. I can just push and do that here. Sometimes if I want to carry that line, I touched yellow here by mistake, so let's just get that out. I want to carry that line a little softer over here, I'll use my brush, which will just diminish it down, but then we'll let it start to pick up some of that interest here, right there, as that mountain starts to come forward, right? And we'll take some of our soft, so we'll go up here and look. So the snow is not completely white, see? It's right about in there, right? So, and you look at that, that's right between an 8 and a 9 as far as value here. And it will dry a little darker, so let's go just a touch lighter. So this will be the snow that I go about putting on up in here. So right up in this area, we'll have some more snow. And a little bit thicker gives you see this roughness that comes here? That's the slightly thicker paint, not thin, thicker paint. And you can make the horizontal marks that mountain has here, you know, the little ridge lines and stuff like that has. You can just use the tip of your knife. I like this knife because basically that tip of it and stuff, this does great things. So we'll set that back. Sometimes I'll drag over it. So sometimes I'll go back and forth. So I'll drag one color and then I'll drag the dark like that back up over it to soften some of it and create some more just natural looks to it. That's what I'm looking for, those natural looks here. Here we go, something like that. That's kind of neat. And maybe some sliding snow right down here, just pulling it down. Just let it slide right on down there like that, okay? Let's go up here now, up into this area. So we're going to put a cloud over all of this, right, to soften some of that out. We'll put a cloud. Let's just push in and soften that just a bit here. We'll push a cloud in to soften some of that as well. And I probably did that a little more than I want. So I just come back and just add a touch more. That's kind of good looking. Let's add a touch more here. There we go. Just a bit of that. That's kind of neat. Maybe a harsher ridge line right there. A little higher than the other one. That's pretty good. Now, let's come in. The other one's going to be softer. We just want to create, as we come up in through here, that next mountain that's there is very, very soft. It has a nice soft feel to it. In other words, and don't copy. Don't get into a copy mode. We're painting. We're just painting here. And we're using it for inspiration. So let's come in here first and let's just set the flow of some of this. A little thicker paint. See how it drags on, and I can get the feel of that mountain. Thicker paint will leave these here. Okay, if you're thin paint, it won't. The thin paint will just track right with you. Let's thicken this up a bit. A little bit of burnt sienna and a bit of violet here. And right into this. Darken it down. Slightly different color. A little bit here. That's kind of nice. A little thicker. Let's pull in the sides of this mountain here. Pull in the side look of it here. And it's going to get quite thick right down here. But just tapping it and working it like that is going to make it look like snow and everything else that's happening in there. Right? We'll take a little bit thicker of this right down in here. Yeah. And let's get a little heavier right along the mountain line itself. So it comes forward there, like that. Okay. And we'll bring it up, and then it's going to soften all back up into here. So let's go back to a little bit of our other color, and we'll bring these all up, and then it's going to flow right into the sky and stuff up here. So I'm just going to blur it out so I have an easier time blurring this into the sky when I go push the sky in there. I'm just going to blur it out here. All right. So now let's come back in and add a bit of the dark, a bit more dark. So a little bit darker, a little more violet, maybe a touch of burnt sienna. The burnt sienna will actually make the color a little bit more toned. So if you feel that your mountain's too purpley, the burnt sienna in there will give you the dark, but it also makes it a bit more toned, which is nice. Okay, so let's come in here and just set some of those darker ridge lines here. Okay, some ideas of this pulling down, maybe on this side, maybe that's a edge of the mountain there pulling down on that side. Let's use the tip of the knife here and just draw a bit, soften the edge. You could use your finger, you could use a brush. If you're using oils, don't touch it, use a brush. Okay, down like that. A little bit darker, see, it pulls the mountain a little bit farther forward here. Let's add some of this darkness for ridge lines and stuff going on, and as the mountain's coming forward. As it's going to go this way, we're going to be softening this all out. So we will. I'm just going to lift up and just drag a little bit. Let that ridge line right there. Let that be a little bit different. Now let's and that's going to look okay. I'm probably going to drop this mountain in front down a little further so I have a little more room here. Let's just drag some of that down and wipe my brush here, and I'll just drag some of this thicker stuff down. Just softens it out. You don't want to do it too much because you'll blend it. We want some of those highs and lows, right? Let's get our softer blue, like an 8 or a 9 snow color, right? Let's just go in right up against that edge, and we'll put in that snow pulling down that side here. So we'll see more of the snow now here, right? Right in here like this, up and down. See the thicker paint, you can see it. See how it sticks a little different, and I can manipulate it to make the little highs and lows there to give more interest to the mountains, right? And maybe some of that will come up over here, and it'll start working together because we're going to mist all of that off right there. But yeah, that looks pretty good. A little bit lighter, just a touch lighter, so I add a bit of white to this. Nice, but I'm thicker. See how much thicker the paint is right now than that original that I put in with quite a bit of the extender in it. So I'll put some thick, you can see it clump right there. That shows you how thick that color is. And I can drag that through, and that's what gives me that modeling look to the color. And we can use this on edge right here too. And I'll look up reference there for another little ridge line of some lights right there, right? And right up along the top up here, maybe some, right like that, just little ridges of snow. We have this angle here. We can break that up with some little ridges of snow here, pulling down just a bit. That's kind of nice. You can go back and forth, you know, take a little bit of a medium blue and pull some of that through to change some of the snow. You know, it's really a lot of fun to drag it through here and create the snow environment. Let's create that snow. See how that just, so pushing away works too. And I don't want to smooth that out too much. So just be careful that I'll leave some of that right like that. That's really, so the mountain's got a lot of power in it. And then when it starts to dry up, we'll put some more mist. We can do a little bit of that. Let's grab some blue, a little bit more blue, a little bit more violet, maybe a touch of the burnt sienna to tone it just a bit here. And thin this out. So that's a good color. Let's thin this out quite a bit right here. And so what you're going to do is we're going to find that color right up in here, which is about a 6 or so, which means we've got to do about a 7. So when I look at that, if I put that color on there I'm a little dark for a 7, so let's go a little bit lighter here, because a 7 will in acrylics will dry to a 6. So you just paint it for just a minute, a little bit lighter, and that's got that. So see, when I touch it on there, that's pretty close. I could go just a touch lighter, but that'll be a good color to start back up here. And this is all wet and smooth because I put that extender on. And I'm going to work that edge right into the mountain here, just real light. This is where the fusion brushes really take hold here, because they're soft and they manipulate like that really easy. So let's go a little thicker right up here, a little heavier. And that's a good softness to start with. Let's take a bit of the light with that. We'll step up over here to the side. Let's add a little atmosphere right up to that edge here. A little bit of that just modeled through here. We'll soften out some of that look. Let's take like a little cloud look here through some of this. Just pull through it, see? Isn't that pretty? So you put this real soft kind of look right back there, and then your marks become more aggressive, really, as you're coming forward here. So let's just take a bit of this mid-tone and just drag through some of that right in there. Go create that edge of that mountain, maybe a bit more contrast here, right up in here. Move that through. Just leave that edge. That edge, see that edge right there going against that slightly darker, really pulls this mountain forward. That might be too much. As I get that, I'm going to take it down just a bit, because as I put that next mountain on, I need that darkness for that next mountain. So I'll take it down just a bit. That might be better right there. Maybe on the reference photo I have over there, I have a real light snow hitting right up over here. So we can just drop that in. Real thick white here. Just reach over, grab some real thick white, almost pure white. And let's just drop that in, drag that down just a bit like that to create that light struck snow right there. And maybe a little bit of it hitting down here like we see in the reference photo. Okay, a little bit. And that's all I do is I don't copy that photo, I use it for reference, right? That's what I like to do, use them for reference. So as the mountain comes forward here, the actual shadows get darker and the lights get lighter. Does that make sense? That's what happens here. Let's pull some thick right down here. Boom, some thick snow. And if I need to, I have out, those of you that painted the last Western with me, you saw how I made my snow thicker using the rheology modifier, the acrylic thickening agent, and that works so very, very well. We can do that if we need to. But let's just touch in a little bit of this lighter snow here and here, and we'll let it fade away here. There we go, just to give a little bit more here. And this, you know, in actuality, in his mountain, not his mountain, the reference photo here softens out a bit more back up here. I kind of like this slightly heavier, but maybe I'll soften it just a bit so it disappears easier. And you do that just by flattening your knife and pushing. I call it burnishing it down into the painting here, okay? And it really works. Let's cut a little bit more light right up an edge and add just a touch more snow maybe right there. That looks good. Now let's keep going forward. Let's mix up here a bit more. So a bit more blue, a bit more red violet, maybe a touch. Sometimes a touch of the red will kill the blue, the intensity of the blue, because the red, this Naphthol Red Light is almost a complement. See how it grays that down? So I get this real nice blue. Now that mixed up a little lighter than I want. Remember, we're going for about a 3 or so down over here. So we're a little bit light. So, but a 4 will dry to a 3, but that's just a touch too light. So let's just mix down a bit more dark over here. Violet, reds. Let's get that a little more violet, a little bit more burnt sienna, slightly darker here. And yeah, let's get this a little grayer. So if I add the blue and the red, that'll make some nice grays. See that beautiful, that darker gray. And that's going to go right up over here. There'll be some dark, right? So we'll see that. Now you can really see how it comes forward, right? Over here by his ear into this area, there'll be some nice darks. And I'm just going to push this around here. We know this area is going to go dark. This is what's going to bring, this dark is going to advance the composition. Now, you know, this is pretty dark, so it means we have to get real dark with him as well up in here. But we'll do that. Let's lighten it up slightly. Little bit of light, slightly lighter right up over here. And I'm just doing it with my nice knife, tossing it in because I like the modeling that happens with my knife so I can look at it here. And let's model some of this right up over here as well. Okay, and we'll pull that down here, just like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. We can add some lighter snow in there. Model this up a bit. Let's just add some lighter snow through that, right? And we'll take some dark and stuff right along this edge, and I'll burnish this edge right here, and this will help start to, or blur it out, start to shove the front of that forward, and this, or back, this back edge right here goes back, and it'll bring the front edge forward. So I'll manipulate the edges there. In other words, let's bring this edge here a little bit of dark, a little bit farther forward here, right? And I can increase the whiteness, you know, even though this is kind of in a shadow, kind of on the reference photo, but I could increase the amount or the lightness of that snow, pull that down a bit there. And I'll work this though. In other words, what I'm going to do is several times work through this until I manipulate that edge to what I want. That's how I do it. So his edge is a little bit bigger. The edge of the reference is a little bit bigger, a little bit more here. I have to decide how much I want to do. Do I want to put that tree over there that's going to cover all of this up anyway? I like little dark bands like that because that starts to look like trees and stuff going on. So, you know, that looks pretty good. Let's mix this up again. I lost my dark. I used it up, so we'll just go grab some of this. Mix up a lot more of it here. I can change slightly. That's good. Now I'll just take my brush. I'm going to thin this for a second. I'll just take my brush and just draw a line of it in here of that mountain shape. It's going to go up again, going right around my drawing that I had. And let's just block in real close to him here what he's going to look like here. So he'll be popping forward of that shape. That looks pretty good. Let's just add a little extender here to this and work this thin because I'm going to put in some thicker snow here. We'll work the angle in because we'll work some thicker snow in that. And let's go up just a bit more dark right up here and work the edge, manipulate the edge. You can, I'm going to pinch wipe my brush here like this, take out some of that paint, and just pull through like that and blur that edge. Just even once. You do it again, you might blur it too much, but just pull through and just pull down like that, and it'll blur some of that mist right down into that edge and blur that edge off of that mountain. Okay? There's a lot of techniques. And most of the techniques that we use are all basically all around the thickness of the paint. So you can see as I'm becoming more granular with this look, the paint's becoming thicker and then thinner all the way back through here. Okay? Okay, so let's take some of this. We'll model in some white here. Maybe even a little open medium right now because I want this to stay wet for a little bit while I manipulate. We're going to look for some forward snow. Let's look right about what value we are here. I'm right about the right value because it needs to be a little lighter, but I'm not quite as violet. So I'm going to add just a touch more violet here. Yeah, now let's come over here and work this, and it's thicker paint, see? And I'll work this into this area here, and we'll put in some ridge lines. Just tap it around a bit, right? Maybe that heavier line of snow right in there, right? Now, I can take the 3/4 inch brush here and manipulate that, right? This is one way. Take my big brush, which has the sky color in it, which is really a nice thing to do, and just soften out like this some of those colors pulling across that will soften out some of that look. Some of the things as I come forward, like I'll blur it and then come back on top of that blurring and put in more distinct marks. Does that make sense? So I might come in here and just blur off like this, and then I'll work on top of this with some more distinct marks. Does that make sense? That gives more interest to it. So let's blur off some of this. And if you touch it and it moves, this is very important, guys. If you touch it and it moves really easy on you and you go, ugh, we're acrylic. Give it some time. Give it like 10 minutes to start. The drying process of the acrylics is it collaces, it pulls together. So give it some time to pull together and tighten up. Does that make sense? And then it becomes harder to move. So watch it. Just play it with some other areas here and watch it as it's tightening up. And then as it's tightening up, then you can, you can manipulate it and do some more things. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I can come in here now. Let's model together this light and this dark right up here. And I can lay that in to lay some interest for the mountain there. Light and dark, see? And so I'm modeling the two together here. Not doing it too much, but modeling the two together here. And I'm using that here. Watching where that light and dark is hitting. And modeling that through to create some of that interest on that mountain. The snow interest. Let's create a little more snow interest right in here. The photo has a big arching kind of a snow right through here. So I'll pull some of that through. And again, if that moves too easy on you, let it dry up a bit. Let's lighten up, thicken up here. I haven't added any of the thickener, but I could. And this is really wet, so I have to touch it very lightly, or I let it tack up a bit, but I could come back in and slide some of this. The more I touch it, the softer it's going to get. Does that make sense? The more it's going to blur. But if I let it dry up a little bit, it won't do that as much. So it's learning the consistencies, the touching of your paint here, and learning how to manipulate it here. But there's, like on that others, there's a little point and a little draw out, and you can do that kind of stuff. So you can take that light, set it in, use the knife tip and draw out like you see in the reference photo. You know, you can push back in and soften and touch edges and stuff. That just gives it a more natural look of snow hitting along the edge. There's some edges. Now see, I'm right here. I'm nowhere near pure white. So I can take some of the pure white that you see on that reference where the sun is hitting that here, and I can add in some touches of pure white now. And that really pops. Oh boy. That really pops. Nice, thick, little touch, the sparks of the light. I'm going to add another one here, just because I do like that a lot. So, and you'll see on the photo, there's another like little hit of that light right in there. And I like that as well. So a little bit of that right in there. And that looks pretty good. But you can come back and manipulate some of the dark through if you want to increase some contrast or some other types of movement here. You can burnish down, soften down. Maybe this is too much right here. So let's just burnish down, soften down some of that color here. Built in. So each time I come over it lightly with the knife here, it almost like blends. So it's kind of like blending it down. You could do this with the brush too, depending on the type of brush you have. The fusions work really soft, really nice. And we can add some other lights right down through here. Bring some of those lights forward. So you see the mountains get more contrast as they come forward, right? They're really a lot of fun to paint. Now, I do this too. Let me just show you. I'll touch into my dark here and I'll rock my my knife like this, and it creates this stuttering movement here. And that just makes it look like ridge lines and stuff like that on your mountain. And if it does, if you think you took out too much, just reverse it with some darks. Touch that in with some darks. Work the colors here. Work the colors back and forth until you get a mountain that has a bunch of interest that you like on it, right? That's the goal, right? And then we will paint a beautiful wolf, and everyone will forget about your mountain, but it'll just be back there to where they just notice it, right? Let's put another little spark right up here. Maybe just a little bit. I like that. See, I like that darker. Mine's a lot darker than the reference photo. I could soften that. Let me just show you. You could soften that out. Is it too dark? Well, maybe a little. But I can just take a little light and just drag right through that and soften that point out like that a bit more. And that works. Let's pull a little snow down this angle here, right like that. That's kind of neat. That gives it's a little bit more, the reference photo there is a little bit more rounded and all that kind of good stuff. Mine's a little bit more pointy, but that's okay. I like my mountain. So we'll just push that edge in there. I like that kind of dropped edge there. And a little more dark right here, which will pull him forward. So we'll go ahead and allow that to happen. And see, I went too far over there, so I'm just going to follow this line here and pull it off, and it will blur that edge off, and then I'll come back and reset how much of the edge I want with my knife. Like that. That's nice. Right like that. A few little touches. And so you could use the tip of your knife like this to, like maybe you want to make little ridges of snow coming down. Just tap it and create the ridge lines of it, little marks of it, right like that. And you'll create the snow. So then you can come back and go, see, I really like that if you look back up there, up in that corner, there's a real spark of light. And we haven't added the warmth. You could add a touch of yellow to that, which will really contrast, just a tiny, tiny bit of the yellow oxide. Really contrast that. And as this is tacking up, it's tacking up a little bit, it's really easy for me to add more whites to that and really start to pop that white out a little bit more. So let's just grab that. Let's put in that bit of a ridge line there of where that sun is hitting. Maybe a next little line mark here. Down through there, the sun's hitting there, right? And right down through like that. That looks really good. And if your whites don't show up, adding more and more and more white won't do it, but you need to add a little bit darker color, right? So that the white shows up more, contrasts more. Or let it dry and touch the white again. Sometimes it's because it's wet and it's, dangling or mixing too much on it. Let's add a little soft. We'll push back and forth up in here just to push some of that in. That's nice. Add this, love how that just disappears back up there like that. And this is, you look up, of course the camera can see it up pretty close, but you get up in here, this is like, boom. But, I mean, it is like in your face, why did you leave it so thick? But it will, when it's finally, what happens is a little bit of that texture as the paint coalesces will go away. So, and it softens out. So sometimes I leave it really, really textured because it's going to disappear. And then you also do I'm looking at it right here, which is 8 feet away, 7.5, 8 feet away the camera is. So it's 7.5, 8 feet away, which is, the distance of it. I'm looking on the monitor here, which I've told you guys before. That's what I have set up, a monitor back up over, camera back up over my shoulder. That's 8 feet away from here. That gives me what this painting looks like at 8 feet. And that's the normal viewing distance first of somebody in the gallery, and that's where I like to grab them. So I will paint it for that. And I can see I want a little more interest over here. So I'm going to grab a little more interest right there. And maybe down this side just a bit. Here like that. There we go. Just a little more interest. And we got this nice kind of cool here. I'm going to let that happen. That's kind of like the cool side of the mountain there. The other one doesn't have it as much, but that's okay. I like that. So I'm going to leave it. Maybe add a little bit of that coolness right up here. Pulling down this way. Mark it a bit so that it breaks up just a touch of that dark. But that, to me, so it's a little bit more rugged than the photo there where it's a little bit softer. And that ruggedness might hinder us over here, at the end. But I can soften that, see? I can look back now that I have that, and I can drag, because we're going to miss this, but I can right now drag some of that mist that's right here, right over that edge, and soften back that edge. Acrylics can do this as well, right? I'm going to bring that edge back just a bit, just with my brush, right? It'll soften that back, maybe right in here. Maybe it's too much right here. So I'll drag some of that right across into that, barely touching the surface. Wipe my brush, barely touch the surface and blur that edge out just a bit more. Soften it out just a bit. And that softening, let's blur this out a bit here. We'll just drop that out, right like that. Wipe my brush, wipe my brush, wipe my brush. Drag it right here, right down into it, and soften that edge. And I'm softening the transition of the colors in between those two just lightly. Now, if it dries up, that worked all really well for me. If yours is dried up, how can you still do that? I showed you that in one of the other videos. Water. Water is your solvent. very, very, very little, but a little damp water, and you'll come in there and you will add that that little bit of softness to it. The water is your solvent. Now I'm going to come back one more little time here, a little bit more violet here. And bring this edge of this mountain through this a bit more. And then I'll soften that out. So I want that a bit more, maybe pulled through. You see some of the ruggedness of it. And then let's take a little extender, a little light, and the violet, or mist color, right? Our mist color here, and just drag over that. And see how that softens it back? Wipe your brush, pick up a little bit of mist color, and just lightly drag over that, and that'll set it back. So it sets up that mountain, pushes that mountain back. Now, and one of the things I like to do sometimes is put in a little bit of light phthalo into the sky. That's a nice, cool kind of feeling color. Makes nice clouds, the look of clouds. And we can push that right up in there. It'll play up against the violets that we have. See that little spark of color? So and I'll take it up here. It's just a little bit of phthalo in a blue into the white, tiny bit, to give you some of that different look at the sparks. And so you get some different colors through. And sometimes I'll touch that, lightly through some of the mountains to just add a little bit of that color through, through some of this. And look at that. But that really sets that mountain up pretty nice, doesn't it? Yeah. So let's come through now. Okay, so we need to, we said we can mist in through here. And if you look at the photo there, the reason why I really like it, he'll pop forward because it's softer all through here. And on mine, it's not, right? And so I can do that. I can mist. And so that is tacking up pretty nice. So I can take a little bit of extender and some of my mist color. This is far better if you are painting this and you haven't done this 1,000 times like I have, for you to wait for it to dry, okay? Dry completely. And then thin it out, real thin, extender. Sometimes I'll put extender over the surface so I don't disrupt too much. But I'm going to take very, very thin paint here, very thin, and just start to mist that back. You'll still get the feeling of darkness, see? But it becomes softer. So watch what happens over here. And that's just tacked, so I can do it. So when you look at that, you see he's got kind of a mist there, but I don't have it. So now it's easier again if this is dry, but I don't need to wait because I don't like to wait. So I just lightly push that through. So I'll still keep the impression of the shadow there, but see now it's starting to match what's happening there. That's the atmosphere. And as landscape painters, we paint the atmosphere, right? So I'm going to, before I put in my trees, push in. I've showed you on some of the other quick landscapes on the, we painted mountains and right before and Bob Ross, and he actually learned it from Bill Alexander, did it first, put on the mountain, and then you take a big soft brush and you blur out along the bottom. You're actually putting in the atmosphere. I like how Dustin Van Witchell says it in wildlife painting. He calls it the humidity into the air, which is really what it is. The atmosphere is the humidity. But I'll blur that back out just slightly before I go in there with some of my trees. And blur that out. And then that leaves me some area here to come forward with some of my trees. So I'll take some of this blues and stuff. Let's kip it over to the green slightly. And let's just model in some of our burnt sienna and green into our blues and reds and stuff like that. This is going to be too dark, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I can mist it, right? And I'll just use my big soft brush here, pulling up and down tapping sometimes to break the color a bit, pulling up and down to give the impressions of some of these trees. Point sometimes your brush, pull down, tap a few times, pull across here, give the impressions of those right there like that, okay? And maybe just, this is a little tight, so a little bit of extender, but if it's too loose, it all blends to one color. So it's a kind of, you have to feel the surface here, and sometimes I'll pull up, pull down, creating these variations here like this, and whether or not I put that real big one in there, that's going to be something to think about, right? And we'll pull some darks up. Just this gives me the idea of the line of trees there, and you can see how, boy, that's really going to pull the wolf forward. Do you see that? Right? Okay. Well, that's good right into there. Let's take this thin it out. Maybe a bit more burnt sienna. Brown it out. And a little bit of blues. Thin color like this. And let's just pull right across the bottom here to help blur some of that out. Blurriness gives you depth. So we'll blur some of this out. And that'll give us some area here to start the snow coming forward. So, and sometimes, so I get some nice variations, maybe a little yellow, a little burnt sienna right into here, maybe and right into some of this. I'll pull just some light, just marks of this that'll give my landscape as I come forward color. You know, I'll be able to, white, if we paint the snow, is very light, but this will allow me to have some shadows and stuff in there as I pull forward. Now, we're going to go with the knife. I could use the brush like I did in the last Western, but I have this blue and I have white and I have good snow color right here that I can, we really want to create that nice light snow. So I'm going to set it right here and pull down. Now, see how this blends real fast? See how it's blending real fast? That's because my snow is I had a little bit of extender here, and you can see it's not as thick as what I've used before. And so it's blending really quickly there. And that makes it kind of hard. So if the color I just put on is thin and my snow is thin, they'll blend. They're at equal consistencies and stuff, and they'll blend. So I'm going to soften this back again, right like that. And I'm going to let that tack for just a minute because that's really wet. But I'll push it. I can go ahead and push it back like that. Maybe I'll just push some of that because that'll give me a nice soft. And then I'll come in and as it starts to tack up, I will work my next color. It's a little too wet to work. Does that make sense? It's a little too wet to work. Boy, that's, let's see, that is right about the height of his eye. Yep, that's right about where it is. So let's just pull that line here. We'll give a little bit of a hill. We'll pull, that'll make a good medium snow here. But see, I love this kind of look, right? And that's what I'm going to be going for. But I want to give it some of that snow look that we did on the last Western as well. So I'll let this tack up a bit. And the other thing, like we did with the last Western, what I showed you, we have this, which is the rheology modifier. It's the thickener. So see, you can see here, I'm real thin. See how real thin this is? It's a thinner paint. If I take just a touch of this, and it takes a tiny bit, this is enough to last my entire painting career, and I mix this in, you can see what happens. Boom. There it is thick. You can see it real. I can scoop this all up. Thick paint now, see? And I'm going to lighten this up just a bit. So that's all the thickener I need. If you get too much, it gets kind of gummy. So, but you just add more paint and thicken it up. That until it feels thick but yet you can manipulate it. Does that make sense? So I want to have it thick. I like it a little bit thicker than toothpaste here, right? And I can draw with it. So we want to create like a little path line right back there, right back through there, and drag this just a bit. See how it sticks? It sticks, and this is what gives me the ability to kind of almost draw with it there. So I'll pull down. I'm going to create like a little path line here, and I'll pull down to set the trees down into that line here. Maybe a little bit of snow under those trees. That looks kind of neat too, right? And up as I come up front. Now, up on the front up here on that photo, it actually is a hump that goes this way, so I can go ahead and set that in. But see how it slides now? See how it doesn't blend in? I get the look of the highs and lows of that snow. I want this just a bit higher right here, thicker paint, and I'm just going to lightly pull it across so I get some of that brokenness to it here as I push that on. That thicker paint is what really gives you the feel of the snow and the sliding of it here, of that snow. There we go. And I can just tap it a little bit, create some highs and lows, some different colors kind of thing. In the photo, it gets really light, so I can come back and trowel on some more light right in through there. And you can see once I've got that thick paint on, it works really, really well. So, and I can control it. I can come back and soften it. I want to really push in some light right up here so that he really comes forward. Let's get rid of that right there. A bit of the light still coming through these trees right there. Right up there, like it's a little pathway. I always like to make, in all of my landscapes, no matter what, whether river or whatever, I like to make a little journey. So see, I'm just creating this little journey, the edge of the knife on edge and down and through and pulling that through and creating a little angled journey there. Let's put a little more light right up into the front here. Right like that. Boom. And so I create a little tiny journey going off there. Isn't that kind of fun? Yeah, you create these fun little journeys like this. And let's come back up over this side with some thicker, lighter white. See how it drags now? I get that drag, which I like, which will create the highs and lows into the snow. And I can wipe my knife, I can soften those out a bit, you know, bring back in some more shadows and lights here. Right like that. Let's pull in some more light down. Light pressure, thick. Now I got this nice thick area here. You can see my white staying thick. I got too much extender up over into this area here. So now this is staying here a little bit more. Now, and you can also, so I can put it on there like that, pinch wipe my nice dry brush, very light pressure and pull through and just smooth it out a bit. You know, just a little bit here. If you don't like all of the roughness of it, that's smoothing it out. Just a little. Let's go back up over here. You can rinse. I'm going to get rid of that rinse. Now I have water in it. Water's a solvent. This is very wet. I'd cut through my paint too fast. So I'll pinch wipe all of the moisture out of it, and I'll touch it into a little extender, work that into the brush, and pinch wipe some of the moisture out. The extender will not cut through. It'll give you moisture, but it will not cut through. Set back, get back on your brush, okay? And just start over here, light pressure, and just pull slightly like that. And you'll give that blur line. Wipe your brush. Start up over here, pull slightly, and you'll start that blurry line. If you like that nice, softer look to that. Here, let's start up over here and pull through. Now see, because I pick up a little bit of light, we'll just start and lightly pull through here. And I may have taken off too much, but I kind of like that. I like the way all of that is looking, see? So that's looking pretty good, right? So far. So far, so good, right? Isn't that kind of fun? It's, you know how many years it took me to learn to do some of that stuff. Now, here, I start to look at this ear. It's all going to be how I paint the ear. This is following that ear shape maybe a little bit too much. There are two shapes that are following each other too much. I might jag it up that just to, or change it from the photo so that I don't get too much of them following the same. Does that make sense? So there we go. So it's a little bit more of an angle. So I look at stuff like that. Am I, making a consistent line or something like that, But let's come through and add just a few more smaller marks, different little trees here. Yeah, that's good. And now let's block in, because we're a little over an hour. I wanted to keep these videos a touch shorter than what I did with the big hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes. So we'll block in. We're going to block in some of this stuff and use up some of our paint here. Block in, add a few blocking colors, and I'll take a nice photo of it for those of you that are in the membership and stuff, so we can just start getting a feel for our guy here. Pull that down. That nice cooler. I want to get some of this. I want to get some warms, lights, and cools. I'm not quite sure yet. I want to have a afternoon here to take a look at it as to what I want to do up here in the front. I'm not quite sure here, but I want to get some of these blocking colors in. Right, so we'll take some burnt sienna, some green, some blue, some yellows. We'll just model this all together here. Maybe a little violet, a little bit more blue, so we keep it on the snowy side. Bit of extender. Model this into the brush here. And we can add some snow up into the front so you can give a visualization of it. Of course, you have my final one to look at, so you'll see what I decided to do. But let's just drag that in. And let's take some of this, because I'm thinking I might add some ground up here into the front. I might not. I might just do this all as a snow, but this would be a beautiful base here as a snow anyway. So, but it's just it's a nice base to contrast what's gonna happen with the snow. And let's pull some of that off of him here. And some of this goes up here, a little bit of that. Notice how careful I am with my drawing. That gets me in trouble many times because I spend a lot of time getting the drawing kind of right, and then I overpaint it and lose some of my structure. So that comes in through here. But now, see, what you can do is use up some of these lovely snow colors. Let's get that violet to this snow color here again. And get this over, lighten this up a bit, gray it, just grab some of your grays here, gray it, but it's going to get a lighter snow color. Might need a bit more white, but I want that hill to be coming right down here, so we'll be building that up here. We know that hill, so see, there's going to be kind of a hill with some line coming down here from this side. So we'll just block in, nothing spectacular here, just to let us start to see how is he working, and are you going to like him with some of the, in the other snow and stuff that's happening here. I do want that lighter band of snow right in here, because I think that's kind of neat. Now, you can just take your big brush and blur and soften that out a bit here, so it doesn't get too, objectionable when you're looking at it. So that's got that pretty good, and he's got other lines of that photo where I put in there other lines of trees and stuff. I'm not sure. I might, I might leave this all snow a little different, because now that I'm painting it, this is a nice thing about blocking in, because you change your mind. You see his back rump is very dark, and so it blends in, which is not bad, to some of the ground. But I might want to have in there some more light snow, and I might be, new, not quite new, but fairly good sized tube of white. You see, I use a lot of white, didn't I, in this painting? And so we might want to lighten some of this up right in here, and this, so that his rump, his darkness of his rump will come up against some lighter snow right there, and what that does is that his darkness will push him forward. The lighter snow will cause him to push forward. And so, because the light colors in this painting recede. So, and that's what we have to kind of balance out. The light receding colors here. Do we want to put in this light hill that's going to come across here, right? And so let's just, we've got a little bit of time. I wanted to keep this an hour. I'm already over. But I just want to block in a couple of his colors here. So let's get a little bit more of my blue out here, because I need blue. I think I'm going to make him blue, burnt sienna, or burnt sienna with a touch of blue and burnt sienna here, and maybe sometimes some red. So we'll get that. And see, I just do it on a dirty place of my palette. There's a lot of artists that don't like to do that. I like it. I like the harmony that it adds to my colors. There's some that disagree with it, and that's okay. So I'm going to block in a little bit of the dark area that I see on him, and see just how much he's going to advance in the painting. Does that make sense? Just give me something to look at this afternoon, and we'll come back and paint a little bit more tomorrow morning on him. I'll be able to look at him for a little bit. I do like to do that. Sit down and look at him to make sure I'm going to capture. See, that dark is going to pull him forward. We can take a softer version of that dark, a little bit more. So if it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more burnt sienna into it. And let's just pull some of that down right along the line of his face here. And we'll blur that out. See, that's going to cause his whole body to come forward. Let's take some of that and we'll block in. Now we can change these colors really easy, guys. I'm looking at it. I'm not getting exactly the right color, but I'm very close. And that's all I want to do, to be able to see him going in here right now before we stop him. And of course, you'll be able to continue on, but I've got a class. I got some other artists showing up in about 30 minutes upstairs that I promised them a little color theory today. So, and we'll get that as well. But, so we'll get that. If it's slightly green, if it looks slightly green, add a little red to it, and that'll warm it right back up. Let's get just a little bit of that warmth right up here. Right, and some of the edge on him. So we can just see a little bit of how he's going to come forward here. That's going to be nice here. And some of this yellow, orange, kind of warm here. Right, well, let's lighten that up a bit. This will just give us an idea of some of his warm tones. And I'll paint right over a majority of this. But this is going to give me a look of what he's going to look like, right? So this is just a idea. Some nice warms that'll come in along some of his edges. Here, I'm just looking at that. There's his tail right back here, right? That looks good. Of course, we're really going to want to start up towards his face and stuff. So, and we'll do that. Let's get some of that face marks in. But I'm going to want to work his face. So let's get this slightly bluer, darker. That's going to pull along that line here. That's going to work. I think this is really going to work in this whole painting here. Kind of excited. Kind of excited. It's working. I love it when all your thought processes and stuff worked. You know, I haven't changed it too much. A little bit from my drawing or the idea that I created. So I created that photo in Photoshop, and now I've changed my mind a little bit here and there, but that's okay. It hasn't changed it too much. So I'll create a little bit of these darks, see, right up here. Boom. Yeah. I'll probably leave most of these white areas white and stuff, but maybe a little bit more color into him. Just dirty brush between the lights and the darks will leave some of the coloring in him coming through. Just quickly. Just the ideas of it here. And as you can see, we got a lot of light and stuff to do. So, and we'll do that. But I'll just add some of this. I'm not, it looks like I'm maybe adding texture. I'm not. I don't add, when I block colors like this to look at it, I don't add textures because I don't want to put on something that is going to interfere with me putting another layer on it, if that makes sense. So we'll just add a little bit of soft lights here to his muzzle, maybe down this side here. Just using up some of my palette colors here. And the sign, we're going to paint him with a lot smaller brush than the 3/4 inch that I'm using here. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll set that one into the water, and let's go to my number 10, just so I don't make so as we put some of these colors on, I don't make too much of a mistake. Right? Burnt siennas, blues, the darker ones that you see more of a gray, I add more blue to it, cools it down a bit, so you know, and we'll add some other additional darks and stuff. But then the lights, I add more burnt sienna and yellows, so they warm up a bit, right? And we'll add some of that in there, model some of this through here, just to give me an idea of him, so he gets blocked in. I always tend to follow, I look at to which direction and stuff his fur is going, and I'll just block in some of the fur, right? So he's just blocked in. Don't look at it for being perfect. You're just putting on the colors that are going to help you later on here to get the look, right? But I want to come in and really paint his face before I get too far into the painting here. Yeah, a little bit of dark here. Here right up, and let that just lift off. A little bit of dark right into his ear, right in there, up onto the tips of his ear. Yep, I like him. Let's clean that line up a bit, and that'll help him advance. Nice found edge right there. That'll help him advance. let's put a nice found edge in up over here. Again, that will help him advance. Found edge, clean line. And that's what brings him forward, is that clean line. So a clean line, even though he's a little furry, a clean line right in here, we might make a few strokes of it to really bring him forward. See how it really brings him forward? Yeah. Boy, that's going to work. And so I want to, though, not go too far here. We'll just put in a little bit. That'll be his nose here. A little bit there just to get some idea here. A little line of his mouth. But I want to really paint his face and stuff before I get too far forward here. Before I get too far out into the weeds of this painting, the small details and stuff, right? But that's going to work. So, not bad. Okay, an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, that's long enough for this particular one for you. And then we'll come back with the next one. Oh, I really like how those mountains came out. We'll come back with the next one. We'll work on him, work onto his face, and see how far we can get in another hour and 20 minutes. We'll see. You know, might be able to finish it. I doubt it, because I want to really pop him up, and so it might take another 2 videos or so, but I'll try to get him up as soon as possible. And if you like these types of videos, go down there and push that like. You know, we go off of how many likes and stuff like that we get. Right now, florals on the channel are winning. So if you're watching wildlife and stuff and you want to see more of them, make sure you like it. Make sure you leave a comment down there saying, I really like your wildlife, okay? Or I want to see more of that. Leave that comment down there. And we'll be able to get more videos for you, okay? That's how it works. You tell us what you like. And give us some of that a try. Doesn't that look really neat back there? That just looks like you know what you're doing. I like it. Okay, so, and then we'll come back, we'll clean this up, we'll work all on to the front, we'll start to refine him up. I think it's going to be a great painting, okay? Thanks very much, guys. If you're brand new to the channel, make sure you get down there and hit that subscribe button. That helps us out. Smash that little bell so that you get notified when we release videos. And for those of you who are waiting for the next florals, we are planning. And, you know, you could be, by request, one of the things, my daughter is out here painting right now. Matter of fact, she's up with a bunch of painters upstairs in the gallery. We are going to be doing a 30 days of spring. And the spring is going to be a brighter colors. I'm going to show you how to make those. But we're going to do a lot of florals, but we're also going to do some landscapes, some spring landscapes, and a few of the spring animals, birds and stuff like that. We're going to do the 30 days of spring, one painting every day for 30 days. Ooh, that's a lot. Okay, so that's coming. That's coming at the end. The first day of spring is March 20th. We're going to try to shoot for launching it on March 20th. Okay, but and if you're watching this a year from now, go back to the playlist, the 30 days of spring. Okay, all right, that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll start that. And if you have ideas for spring flowers or something you want to see with spring, leave a comment down there, because my wife goes through and writes down all the comments and everything and all the suggestions. She has a list of all the suggestions. So if you have something there, leave that suggestion, and we'll try to work it into the 30 days of spring. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you tomorrow on the next one. All right.